Hi guys, this is Vera and welcome to Vera Yaps. So here in this video, I'll actually be talking about the realizations of a 19-year-old as someone who is part of Gen Z and as someone who is currently living in the Philippines and as a young generation who is very open to a multitude of topics and very exposed to the internet, recognizes that the internet is a very big part of who we are as a generation and how accessible things are to us. Thought of this video a few moments ago and just got ready and started to film in my camera. It was just 5 minutes ago and I started jotting things down that I think would be very meaningful to yap about. So let's get right into it. Number one, knowledge is everything. This is something that I've heard a lot from the elders when I was very young, since I was born in 2007, and elders would usually tell me, you guys are so lucky to have everything handed to you. Knowledge is in the internet. Knowledge is in YouTube. Knowledge is in Google. Scholarships are all over the internet, you just have to come and find them. And this is something that I haven't realized. Most of my life, the young generation has an insane amount of access in knowledge that the elders did not have the privilege to. And that alone is very enticing, because as a curious child, I love to ask about everything and anything at all times. Like, why is the sky blue, mom? Stupid questions like that made most adults hate me as a child. When you start to acknowledge that us as a generation has an insane amount of accessibility to knowledge, you will use that information to actually learn stuff. You can even learn how to learn on the internet. Okay, so second thing is curiosity. I believe that I've talked about this a bit earlier, because when we get older, we tend to lose the excitement over things. As a person who is currently growing up, you should always protect your curiosity and always just think in terms of how big the world is and how much things you can know if you were actually interested in them. How do you practice curiosity? Something about curiosity is that actually you can practice it. You can practice it by asking better questions, by reading a lot of books, not just doom scrolling, but actually consuming important information in books and in articles, research, published works, reading into the minds of others through connections. Very important that you protect your curiosity at whatever age. It's going to get you into a lot of things, a lot of opportunities. Imagine someone asking about something, a scholarship. Perhaps you didn't dive much into it, and another person asked and asked about it. They got the scholarship. It costed you $1,000 just because you didn't ask a good question. Curiosity is a limited supply, and it is certainly depleting as we get older. Third thing is change, neuroplasticity. This is something that I've learned through reading a lot of books. Just for starters, I'm not a connoisseur when it comes to books. I've only read these and a couple of ebooks, and mostly I read self-help books, so don't at me, okay? Something about change that I've learned through these books here is that it's actually possible to change as a person. Growing up, I was always taught that who you are at birth is who you actually are. It determines who you are, it determines what your job will be, and it will determine how much you will make in the future. It will determine how many kids you have and everything. I had to unlearn that and actually lean more into the idea that you can change as a person. Did these bad things when you were young doesn't mean that you cannot have a good job in the future. It all comes down to this thing called neuroplasticity. I've been geeking about this topic for months now because I love it so much. As someone who is very rebellious as a child, I've always thought that I would get nowhere in life. I had big ambitions, but I didn't really know how to get there because I've been branded as this rebellious child. What kind of stuck into me is that what you say to your children is very important because children do not have an inner monologue. They don't have someone telling them in their heads that this is who you are. They don't have anything like that. So external environment is very important for children. What you say to your children is very important. If you tell them they're lazy, that's what they'll instill in their mind. And me, as a person who's been called rebellious as a child, that's something I had to force myself out of. I had to tell myself I'm a disciplined person. I had to prove myself every day that this is who I am and this is who I want to be, and I will do this to get to that. I've always thought that this was all a game of fate. Something that you should learn as early as now is that you can change. It doesn't matter if you did drugs before. It doesn't matter if you did bad things to people before. You can change. And it's okay. You have to forgive yourself for whatever you did before. You have to change. You have to move forward, You have to forgive yourself. Learn why you did these things. You have to know the underlying stuff or the underlying emotions about the things you did and work your way from there. Neuroplasticity talks about change and how neural connections in our brains tend to be stronger when you repeat an action over and over again. And it says a lot about that in James Clear's Atomic Habits. And I know a lot of people hate this book because they say it could have been an article, but it's a very, very good starter book. If you don't really read books a lot, you should be very open to the idea that change is possible. It's okay. Forgive yourself. Move forward. Okay, number 4, understand they are only caring about themselves. How people treat you, how you treat people, how they show up, and how you show up, that has nothing to do with the other person. When a person yells at you, they say mean things, it says more about them than about you. It means that they have unresolved issues within themselves that they cannot fix. And once you understand that people are like that everything in the social world is all about projection, you will start to understand people more and not be mad at their actions and actually understand why they're doing this. Their subconscious minds are wired into doing these kinds of things. Once you understand that, it's actually very sad because before we used to think that when they talk bad about you, it's always about you. But no, it's always about them, their insecurities about themselves, how they think of themselves, and once you understand that, it's very freeing. This is a very heartfelt topic to me because growing up, I've had a lot of people tell me mean things. Adults, classmates, teachers, the way people communicate things to you says a lot about their own life. You have to understand this so that you don't fall into the rabbit hole of stressing about the things that you shouldn't be stressing about. They only care about themselves. No one cares about what you're doing. Maybe they care for like about 60 seconds. Anything beyond that, if they're still thinking bad about you, it's their insecurity within themselves. This is very important too because you know how you show up with people. When you bash another person, you should always think, why am I feeling like this? Why do I hate her? Why do I hate him? Where is this coming from? You should always ask yourself these kinds of things so that you can pinpoint in yourself what insecurities you might have, what problems you have unresolved, the traumas you don't recognize yet, so that your subconscious mind would heal, your nervous system would heal, and you know yourself in and out, and no one can tell you otherwise. When you understand yourself, you won't let anybody else dictate who you are. Next thing in my list is health. Very important thing because I've gotten into bad habits, especially when I was young. I don't know, I feel like I was just getting into the bandwagon of being cool, stuff like that. But when I turned 19, I started going to the gym and stuff. I started running. I started tracking my calories. I started being more careful with myself. I realized that these things are more important than what you do short term for your happiness. Vices such as smoking, drinking, it will only heal you for a limited time. And the return of investment of those things are just so bad. So if you want to live shorter, maybe you can do that. But smoking, drinking, it's just a lot better to live as your healthiest self. When you wake up and not feeling dizzy, when you wake up breathing well, you can fully do long inhales and exhales. It's very, very good. Something that helped me take care of myself more is this video I saw on TikTok in which an elderly was asked how she made her life more fulfilling. She stated that when she was 20 years old, she would wake up and she would think that she was already 80 years old and that she had a day to be her 20-year-old self. I don't know if you guys know what I mean, but I actually think of that very often and apply it to my days as much as possible. Sometimes I wake up and I feel like I'm 90 years old and I get the chance to live as my 19-year-old self. So when I wake up, I do my exercises, I do my squats, I do my lunges, just about anything. When you realize that when you're older, you're gonna have weaker bones, you're gonna have weaker knees, weaker muscles, it's going to make you appreciate the fact that you have a healthy working body. Not just about yourself, it's gonna be about your future children, your parents. It's very important that you take care of your health. I don't know why I have a realization like this at the right age of 19, because most of people my age are just smoking and stuff, and I'm not judging them. It's a part of, growing and stuff, but I don't know why this has come so early to me. Maybe because I see what it does to people, especially like cancer, autoimmune diseases. I really want to live very, very long. Kind of like a goal of mine to live until 2100 and beyond that, because I want to get to a time where living forever is a thing, and I want to live forever. I want to continue learning about new things. I still want to hang out with my friends. I just want to live forever, or if not, I want to live as long as I can to my full potential.